At our reunion, a widow's daughter said Mommy said you'd come. Dad. The first time anyone called me Dad, I was standing under a silver banner that read Welcome Back, Hawthorne Class of 2014, holding a paper plate of cold chicken and pretending I remembered half the people in the ballroom. Then, a little girl in a yellow cardigan ran straight through the crowd, slipped between two alumni taking selfies, and grabbed my hand like she had been looking for it her whole life. She couldn't have been more than 9. Dark hair, blue-gray eyes, one dimple on the left side when she breathed hard. Mommy said you'd come, Dad. Every conversation around us seemed to break in half. A glass clinked against a table. Someone laughed once, then stopped. I looked from the child to the woman frozen near the dessert table, and the 10 years I had spent teaching myself not to think about Claire Donovan collapsed in one breath. Claire's face had gone white. Her name tag read Claire Donovan Reed. Under it, in smaller print, the alumni committee had added, Founder, Bridges and Books. Widowed Mother. Before I tell you how that little girl changed everything, if you've ever believed one honest conversation could have saved years of pain, stay with this story. And if you've ever had to choose between pride and love, tell me which one you think costs more. I crouched carefully because the child was still clutching my hand. What's your name? I asked. Lily, she said. Lily Grace. Grace, Claire's middle name. Across the room, Claire moved then, fast but not graceful, like her knees had forgotten the job. Lily, sweetheart, she said, reaching us. You can't run off like that. But you said if he came, he'd know what to do. Lily turned back to me with complete faith, the kind only a child can hand to a stranger without knowing it might crush him. Mommy's heart is doing the scared thing. Claire closed her eyes. I stood. Claire. She looked at me as if my name hurt her mouth before she said it. Noah. 10 years disappeared and came back wrong. I remembered Claire at 24, sitting barefoot on the roof of the architecture studio, drawing impossible bridges in the margins of grant applications. I remembered the graduation party by Lake Hollow, cheap champagne in plastic cups, our friend singing too loudly in the kitchen, her hand finding mine on the back porch. We had both been drinking, yes, but neither of us was lost to it. I remembered every choice. I remembered her choosing me. I remembered waking the next morning to an empty pillow and a silence that explained nothing. After that, Claire vanished. People told me she had taken a fellowship in Oregon. Then someone said she had married a man named Reed. Later, at a wedding I almost skipped, I heard she had been widowed before her daughter was born. I built a life around not asking questions that had already humiliated me once. Now her daughter was looking at me like I was the answer to one. Is she okay? I asked. Claire's mouth tightened. She gets anxious when there are crowds. That's not what she said. Lily swayed slightly. It was small, but I saw it because I was watching too hard. Her fingers loosened on mine, and her eyes blinked out of rhythm. I dropped the plate and caught her before Claire could. She needs air, Claire said, panic finally breaking through. I lifted Lily into my arms. She was light, too light for the force with which she had entered my life, and I carried her out through the side doors into the hallway. Claire followed, one hand pressed against her own chest, the other digging through her purse. A few people trailed us, including Meredith Vale from the alumni board, but I turned and said, "Give her space." Maybe it was my voice. Maybe it was the look on my face. They stopped. In the hallway, Claire spread Lily's cardigan under her head while I knelt beside them. Lily's wrist had a medical bracelet. Not decorative. Real. I read only 3 words before Claire pulled her sleeve down. Possible arrhythmia. Paternal history unknown. I looked up at Claire. She saw what I had seen. Not here, she whispered. I didn't ask the question then. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But Lily was blinking up at me, embarrassed now, trying to be brave. Sorry, she said. I'm not supposed to run. You made a strong entrance, I told her. That earned the dimple again. Claire gave Lily water from a bottle and guided her breathing with a calmness that had clearly been practiced in worse rooms than this hallway. I watched her count, softly, watched Lily follow her voice back to herself, and anger rose in me alongside something more dangerous. Recognition. The shape of Lily's face when she frowned was mine as a child. The stubborn lift of her chin was Claire's. Her eyes were not proof, but my body had already begun to believe what my mind was too afraid to name. When Lily could sit up, Claire helped her to a bench. We should go, she said. Claire. She flinched. Is she mine? For 1 second, the hallway held nothing but old music leaking through the ballroom doors. Claire's answer came out too quiet. I said, not here. That isn't no. No, she said, and swallowed hard. It isn't. Before I could speak again, another voice cut in behind me. Noah? My mother stood at the end of the hallway in a cream coat, diamonds at her ears, her expression polished for public life and ruined by what she saw. Eleanor Whittaker had not planned to attend my reunion. She had told me alumni events were sentimental traps. Yet there she was, looking from Claire to Lily with recognition she had no right to possess. Claire stood so quickly she nearly stumbled. My mother's eyes moved to the child. Claire. Lily looked between the adults. Mommy? Claire picked up her purse. We're leaving. I stepped in front of her, not to trap her, but because 10 years of silence had just grown legs and tried to walk away. Tell me where you're staying. Noah, please. Tell me. The Marriott by the hospital, she said. But don't come tonight. Then she took Lily's hand and left through the service exit, not the ballroom, not the door everyone could watch. My mother tried to say my name again. I walked past her without answering. That night, I did what I should have done years earlier. I stopped accepting rumors as facts. My best friend Mason Price was a family attorney, and by midnight he was sitting across from me in the hotel bar with his laptop open and his tie pulled loose. Mason had known me since graduate school. He had also watched me turn mean whenever Claire's name came up, which meant he did not waste time asking whether I was okay. What do you know? He asked. I know her daughter called me Dad. He exhaled. That's a start. It's more than a start. It's also not a court order. We go carefully. Carefully meant public records. No hacking, no favors from people who owed my family. No crossing lines that would make me another man Claire had to protect Lily from. Mason searched marriage records in North Carolina and Oregon. Nothing under Claire Donovan. Nothing under Claire Reed. No death certificate for a husband named Reed tied to her. No obituary. No military record. No accident report. The widow story, the one I had repeated in my head as proof Claire belonged to someone else, had no paper behind it. Mason found Lily Grace Donovan's birth record in Oregon. Father listed, blank. Date of birth, 9 months and 12 days after Lake Hollow. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. Mason closed the laptop halfway. Noah. She knew. Maybe. Don't do that. I'm doing my job. You need the truth, not the version that lets you break something. I almost laughed. Too late for that. At 2 in the morning, I called the Marriott. No Claire Donovan, no Claire Reed. At 6, I drove to the address printed on the Bridges and Books brochure from the reunion gift bag. It led me to an old brick train depot on the east side of Hawthorne, the kind of building my company restored for cities that still believed history could earn rent. Someone had painted the doors blue. Paper stars hung in the windows. A sign announced free tutoring, used books, and Saturday breakfast for kids whose parents worked early. Claire was outside unloading boxes from a rental SUV. Her hair was tied back. She wore jeans, sneakers, and no ring. She saw my truck and stopped moving. I parked, got out, and kept my hands where she could see them, because Lily was inside by the window, drawing something with a green marker. "You changed hotels," I said. "I knew you'd look. At least you knew one thing about me." Pain crossed her face, but she did not look away. "That's fair." "No, Claire. Fair would have been a phone call 9 years ago." Her shoulders rose and fell. "Lily can hear through that window." "Then walk with me." We went to the far end of the platform, where morning light hit the tracks that no train had used in 20 years. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence was different now. Not empty. Loaded. I asked again, because I needed to hear it without music, without my mother, without a frightened child between us. "Is Lily my daughter?" Claire's eyes filled, but her voice stayed clear. "Yes." The word landed quietly. It still changed the world. I turned away, gripping the rusted railing. I had imagined anger would be simple if this moment ever came. Instead, it arrived tangled with grief, so sharp it felt physical. 9 birthdays, 9 Christmas mornings, first steps, first words, fevers, nightmares, drawings taped to refrigerators I had never seen. "You let me miss everything," I said. "I know. That's all?" "No, it's not all. But it's the first thing that's true." I faced her. "Why?" Claire looked towards the window. Lily was holding up her drawing for a volunteer, smiling. "Because I was scared. Because I was 24 and stupid and proud. Because your family had money and lawyers and a way of making people feel like facts belonged to whoever could pay for them. Because when I tried to tell you, I was told you had already chosen a different life. Who told you that?" She hesitated just long enough for the answer to form before she said it. "Your mother." The platform seemed to tilt. Claire folded her arms against the morning chill. "I found out I was pregnant 6 weeks after graduation. I called your old number. It was disconnected. I emailed. No response. I went to your parents' house in Charlotte because I didn't know where else to go. My father had a stroke that summer," I said automatically. "I was in Charlotte." "I know. I saw your truck in the driveway." I went still. "She met me at the gate," Claire said. "She already knew who I was. She said you were inside dealing with your father and that I should not add to your burden. Then she told me you were practically engaged to Meredith Vale, that your career was set, that you had described our night as a mistake. I never said that. I know that now." Her voice cracked, but she pulled it back. "I didn't know it then. She lied. She offered me money, a lot of it. I threw the check back at her. Then she said if I made a public claim, your family would ask for custody, and a broke girl with no parents, no job, and one reckless night would not win against Whitaker attorneys." I could hear my pulse. "I sent a letter after Lily was born," Claire said, "certified. To your family office. I included a picture. I said I didn't want money. I said if you wanted to know your daughter, come. No one came. I remembered that year as the year I became hard. My father's illness, my mother's control, my first failed project, Claire's silence. I had thought all my losses were separate. They had been arranged. "And the husband?" I asked. The widow story? Claire's shame was visible, not theatrical. Worse, tired. There was no husband. Reed was my grandmother's last name. When I got to Oregon, I was alone and pregnant, and people asked questions I couldn't answer without saying your name. At first I said Lily's father was gone. People turned that into dead. Then widowed. I let them. It made landlords kinder. It made daycare easier. It made other mothers stop looking at me like I was a warning. I never took survivor benefits. I never put a fake name on legal papers. But I let a lie grow because it protected me from questions. And Lily? She knows her father is alive. She found your picture last year. I told her your name. I told her I had been wrong not to tell you sooner. Then why come here? Claire looked back at Lily through the window. Her cardiologist referred us to Duke for more testing. They need paternal history. I was going to contact you after the appointment. Then the reunion invitation came, and Lily begged to see the place where I met you. I thought if you came, I would tell you quietly. I remembered Lily's words. Mommy said you'd come, Dad. She believed in me before she met me, I said. Claire nodded. That's Lily. She builds bridges before she checks whether the river has a bottom. It sounded so much like something Claire would say that for one dangerous second I wanted to laugh. Then Lily looked through the glass and waved at me. I lifted my hand back. Claire saw it and wiped her cheek quickly. I'll agree to a DNA test. I want one. I know, and I want to be at the appointment. Her jaw tightened. Noah, I'm not asking to take over. I'm asking not to be a ghost in my own daughter's medical history. That landed. She nodded once. Okay. But I need a boundary. Name it. You don't tell Lily you are her father as a promise until you know you can stay. Not legally, emotionally. She has had enough almost. I wanted to argue that I had been robbed too. I wanted to say I was already staying. But Lily deserved more than a sentence spoken in anger. Okay, I said. Then I'll show up before I name it. For the first time that morning, Claire looked at me not like a danger, but like a man she was measuring against a memory. The next 3 days changed me in small, humiliating ways. I learned Lily liked blueberry pancakes, but hated syrup because it makes the plate bossy. I learned she read books 2 grades ahead, but still slept with a stuffed rabbit named Captain Oates. I learned Claire carried snacks, medical papers, colored pencils, and emergency calm in one battered canvas bag. I learned that fatherhood could begin before permission, in the act of noticing. At Duke, Dr. Hahn asked about family history, and Claire's hand tightened around her pen. I answered before she had to. My father has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, diagnosed at 58. I had genetic screening 3 years ago. I can get the results. Dr. Hahn looked from me to Claire. And your relationship to Lily? The room paused. I looked at Claire. She gave the smallest nod. I'm her biological father, I said. We're confirming legally but medically. Use my history now. Lily, sitting on the exam table, swung her feet once. So you're probably my dad? I moved closer, careful not to crowd her. Probably isn't good enough for promises. But I'm here. She studied me with Claire's seriousness. Do you leave when things get weird? The question cut clean through every defense I had. No, I said. Not anymore. Claire looked down at her lap. After the appointment, we ate lunch at a quiet cafe near the hospital. Lily drew a bridge on a napkin between 3 stick figures. One had my hair. One had Claire's ponytail. One had a cape. Who has the cape? I asked. Mom, Lily said, as if that was obvious. Claire laughed, embarrassed. I do not have a cape. You have the emergency crackers. That's basically a cape, I said. Claire's smile met mine, and for a moment the years between us thinned. Not vanished. They could not vanish. But they became something we could see across. Then my mother called. I ignored it. She called again. Claire noticed. You should answer. I don't want her in this. She's already in it. That was true, so I stepped outside. My mother skipped hello. We need to discuss this situation before it becomes damaging. This situation is your granddaughter. Silence. Then, colder. You don't know that. I know enough. You know what Claire told you. I know you met her at the gate. Another silence, shorter this time. She was emotional, my mother said. Your father was ill. You were under enormous pressure. So you lied. I protected you. You stole my child. Her breath sharpened. Be very careful, Noah. No. You be careful. For once, someone in this family is going to tell the truth before a lawyer tells us what truth is convenient. When I went back inside, Claire was pretending not to have listened through the window. Lily was shading the bridge. Bad call? Claire asked. Necessary call. She nodded, but fear had returned to her face. Noah, your mother is not the only problem. What else? She slid her phone across the table. Meredith Vale had sent a message. Claire, the Foundation has received concerns about inconsistencies in your alumni profile. If your widow status was misrepresented, your service award and grant eligibility may be reviewed. It may be best if you withdraw before Saturday's gala. I read it twice. Meredith wrote the profile. She asked for a bio. I wrote, single mother. She added, widowed. I didn't correct her, because correcting her would raise questions. Yes. I handed back the phone. Then we answer the questions. Claire shook her head. You say that like truth is a clean room. It isn't. Truth has people in it. Lily is in it. She shouldn't have to live inside a lie because adults are afraid of being embarrassed. Claire's eyes flashed. Do you think I don't know that? Lily looked up. Claire lowered her voice immediately. I know what I did. But I also know what it feels like to be young, broke, pregnant, and told by a woman with your last name that my baby could be taken from me. The anger went out of me, not because I was less hurt, but because hers had a history I had not lived. I'm sorry, I said. She blinked, surprised. I'm still angry, I added. I'm furious, but I'm sorry you stood at that gate alone. Claire looked away. I shouldn't have run. No, I should have found another way, yes. I'm scared I'll do it again. That was the first thing she said that sounded like a door opening instead of a defense. Then don't decide alone, I said. The DNA test came back Friday afternoon. Mason called while I was at my office, staring at restoration plans I had not understood for an hour. 99.9998%, he said. I sat down. I had expected certainty to feel like a key turning. Instead, it felt like a house appearing around me, fully built, with rooms I had never entered. Say it, Mason said gently. She's mine. Yes. No, I said, because the word mine felt too small and too possessive for what Lily was. I'm hers. I drove to Bridges and Books with the results printed in an envelope. Claire was in the back room packing boxes, not program boxes, personal boxes. Lily's rabbit sat on top of one. My chest tightened. What are you doing? Claire froze. Lily was not there. For once, that made it worse. Lily is with a volunteer at the children's room, Claire said. Don't start loud. Then answer quietly. She folded a sweater with hands that shook. Meredith called again. Someone sent her an anonymous note saying I fabricated a dead husband for sympathy. Your mother's assistant emailed Mason asking about temporary custody frameworks in case paternity is confirmed. I felt heat rise behind my eyes. My mother does not speak for me. She speaks with your last name. I told you I'd fight that, and I believe you want to. But wanting is not the same as understanding what it costs. She taped the box too hard. I have kept Lily safe for 9 years. Maybe not perfectly, maybe with lies I regret, but safe. I will not hand her to a family war because you feel guilty. That is not what this is, isn't it? She turned, and there was the Claire I remembered from studio critiques, brilliant and exhausted and unwilling to be patronized. Do you love Lily, or do you love the idea of undoing what was done to you? The question hit because it was unfair and partly necessary. I don't know how to separate them yet, I said, but I know I want to learn. Her face changed, grief passing through anger. I got a job offer in Portland. It's stable, good insurance. Lily already has doctors there. We can leave Sunday. You were going to tell me when? I'm telling you now, after I found out for myself. I was afraid if I told you earlier you'd stop me. I might have tried, that's why. I took the envelope from my jacket and set it on the table. Claire stared at it. She's my daughter, I said. Legally, biologically, every way that matters except the years I can't get back. Claire touched the envelope but did not open it. I know. Then don't disappear again. I'm not disappearing. I'm choosing distance before this gets uglier. That sounds like disappearing with better grammar. A laugh broke out of her, bitter and sad. I missed that. What? The way you could be angry and still make a sentence I wanted to keep. For a second, we were 24 again, standing too close in a studio full of cardboard models and unsaid things. Then, the moment passed. I'm going to Charlotte tonight, I said. Her eyes sharpened. Why? Because my mother has had 10 years to tell her version. I want mine. At my parents' house, nothing had changed, except everything. The magnolias still lined the drive. The porch lights still came on before dusk. My father sat in the library with a blanket over his knees, older than he liked to admit, watching me with the weary patience of a man who had survived his own pride. My mother stood beside the fireplace. If this is about Claire, it is about Lily. Her mouth tightened. I held up the DNA results. She is my daughter. My father closed his eyes. My mother did not. Then we need to be strategic. No, we need to be honest. Where is the letter? What letter? The one Claire sent after Lily was born. I don't remember a letter. My father opened his eyes. Eleanor. She turned on him. Stay out of this. He looked smaller than the man I grew up fearing, but his voice still carried. No. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother afraid of him. He pointed toward the built-in cabinet. Blue file box. Bottom drawer. My mother's face broke. Not into remorse exactly, but into the anger of someone whose control had finally failed. I crossed the room, opened the drawer, and found the box. Inside were tax documents, old medical forms, and a manila envelope with my name written in Claire's handwriting. My hands were not steady when I opened it. There was a letter. There was also a photograph of a baby wrapped in a green blanket, eyes wide open, one tiny fist pressed against her cheek. Noah. Her name is Lily Grace Donovan. I am not writing for money. I am writing because whatever happened between us, she deserves the truth. I was told you didn't want this. If that is true, I will not chase you. But if it is not true, come. Please come before I teach myself not to hope. Claire. The date was 9 years old. I had not been absent from Lily's life. I had been removed. Claire had not simply hidden. She had reached once from the edge of fear, and my family had cut the rope. I looked at my mother. How did you live with this? Her answer was quiet. I told myself you were better off. And Lily? She had her mother. So did I said. Look what that cost me. I took the letter, the photograph, and the truth my mother had buried. Then I walked out before anger made me say something Lily might one day hear repeated. I found Claire and Lily at Hawthorne's old footbridge just before sunset. Claire had taken Lily there because Lily wanted to see the place from one of her mother's stories before they left. The bridge crossed a narrow creek behind the architecture building. 10 years ago, Claire and I had stood there after midnight, arguing about whether old structures should be restored or replaced. She had said everything worth saving needed more than sentiment. It needed maintenance. Lily saw me first. Noah, she ran halfway, then remembered the rule and slowed dramatically, arms stiff at her sides. I'm not running. I noticed, I said. Claire stood at the center of the bridge. The sunset caught in her hair. Her face had the guarded look of someone braced for another blow. I handed her the envelope. She opened it. When she saw her own handwriting, she stopped breathing for a second. He never gave it to you, she whispered. No. She read the first line, then covered her mouth. Lily looked worried. Mom. Claire knelt and pulled Lily close. I'm okay. I crouched too, not touching either of them yet. Lily, there are grown-up things your mom and I should have handled better. But there is one thing I can tell you now, if your mom says it's okay. Lily looked at Claire. Claire's eyes were wet, but she nodded. I turned back to Lily. The test came back. I'm your dad. She stared at me for a long second. Then she looked at Claire. For real? Claire laughed through a sob. For real. Lily stepped toward me, then stopped. Do I have to hug you? No, I said. You never have to hug someone because they have a title. She considered that. Then she hugged me anyway. I had carried steel beams, signed loans worth millions, stood in rooms where men tried to intimidate me with money and silence. Nothing had ever made me as afraid to move as my daughter's arms around my neck. I held her gently, and over her shoulder I looked at Claire. I would have come, I said. Claire nodded, crying openly now. I know. No, I need you to hear it. I would have come then. I'm here now. And if you still decide Portland is best, I won't stop being her father at the state line. Claire pressed the letter against her chest. I don't know how to trust this much change. Then don't trust the change. Trust what I do next. Saturday night, Claire planned to withdraw from the alumni gala. Meredith had prepared a polite execution. A private conversation, a public omission, a quiet removal of Claire's name from the grant list. My mother had prepared worse, sending a statement to Mason about protecting the child's stability while implying Claire's deception made her unstable. For once, Claire did not run. We arrived together, though not as a couple and not as a performance. Lily stayed with Mason's wife at the hotel, eating pizza and watching a movie about penguins. Claire wore a navy dress and the same silver necklace she had worn in graduate school. I carried the manila envelope inside my jacket. Before the award portion, Meredith intercepted us near the stage. Claire, she said, all sympathy and sharpened teeth, we can avoid embarrassment if you let me handle this. Claire's hand flexed once at her side. Then she said, No. Meredith blinked. Excuse me? No. I'm done letting other people handle my life in rooms where I'm standing. I loved her for that before I let myself think the word. When Meredith stepped onto the stage and began speaking about integrity, Claire walked up the side steps without waiting to be invited. The room quieted in that hungry way rooms do when they smell scandal. Claire took the microphone. "My alumni profile says I'm a widow," she began. "That is not true." A murmur moved through the ballroom. Claire held the microphone with both hands. Her voice shook once, then steadied. "I allowed people to believe something false because I was young, afraid, and trying to protect my daughter from questions I did not know how to answer. I did not receive widow benefits. I did not invent a husband for money. But I did hide behind a lie, and I regret it." Meredith looked furious. My mother, near the back, looked carved from salt. Claire continued, "The truth is that my daughter's father is alive. He did not abandon her. He was not told. That part of the story belongs to him, but my part is this. I should have been braver sooner." She turned and looked at me. That was my cue, not to rescue her, but to stand where I should have stood years ago. I walked onto the stage. "My name is Noah Whitaker," I said. "Lily Grace Donovan is my daughter. I learned that this week. I also learned that Claire tried to contact me when Lily was a baby, and that message was kept from me by my family." The room shifted again. This time, the scandal had changed owners. "I'm not here to punish Claire," I said. "She has spent 9 years doing the work I should have shared. I'm not here to let my family punish her either. The Bridges and Books grant will not be used as leverage over my daughter's mother. If the foundation withdraws support because Claire told the truth, my company will fund the program for the next 3 years with no naming rights and no conditions." Meredith whispered, "You can't just—" "I can," I said. "And I am." Then I looked at my mother. She did not move. But my father, standing beside her with his cane, lowered his head, not in shame alone, but in acknowledgement. Claire handed me the microphone, but she did not step behind me. She stood beside me. That mattered more than applause, which came slowly at first, then with enough force to make Meredith's smile surrender. Outside afterward, in the courtyard where strings of reunion lights hung from old oak trees, Claire and I stood away from the crowd. The night smelled like cut grass and rain on warm pavement. "You didn't have to fund the center," she said. "I know. I don't want to owe you." "You don't. The kids deserve books. That's separate." She studied me. "Can we really separate anything now?" "No," I admitted. "But we can be honest about what connects." She looked down, then back up. "I'm not ready to be some instant family. I'm not asking for instant, and I can't love you just because you're Lily's father. I wouldn't want that." Her eyes searched my face, and I let her. I had spent too many years hiding behind pride than anger. I had nothing useful left except truth. "I loved you before I knew her name," I said. "I was angry enough to bury it, but it didn't die. Now I love the woman who carried crackers like a cape, who built a reading center out of an abandoned depot, who made mistakes and still raised a daughter brave enough to run across a ballroom looking for me." Claire's breath caught. "I don't expect you to forgive my last name overnight," I said. "I don't expect you to trust me because a test says you can." "I want dinner." Then another. "I want school pickup if Lily wants me there. I want doctor forms and boring calendars and the chance to become someone neither of you has to chase." Claire wiped under one eye. "That is the least romantic proposal I've ever heard." "It wasn't a proposal." "Good. But someday, if I earn the right, I reserve the option to improve." She laughed then. A real laugh. The sound crossed 10 years and found the part of me that had waited, stubborn and wounded, on the other side. Then she stepped closer and touched my hand. "I want to try," she said. "Not because of the past, not because of Lily. Because when I stopped running, you were still there." I kissed her only after she leaned in. It was gentle, almost careful, and nothing like the desperate night we had hidden behind for a decade. This kiss had daylight in it. Consequences. Choice. 6 months later, Lily had a school event called Donuts with Grown-Ups because, as she explained, not every kid has a dad, and the school finally got smarter. I arrived early with coffee for Claire and a box of donut holes because Lily believed full donuts were too much commitment. She stood near the classroom door in a purple sweater, scanning the hallway with that same fierce hope she had carried into the reunion ballroom. When she saw me, she grinned. "I knew you'd come, Dad." This time, no room went silent. No one dropped a glass. Claire only smiled beside her, warm and steady, her hand finding mine like it belonged there but still chose to arrive. I knelt, straightened Lily's crooked name tag, and said the words I should have been able to say from the beginning. "Always, kiddo, I'm here." And because life is not fixed by one confession, we kept doing the unglamorous work. Therapy, legal papers, family boundaries, Sunday pancakes, medical checkups, apologies that did not demand immediate forgiveness. My mother saw Lily only after Claire agreed, and only with rules clear enough to hold. My father sent books to Bridges and books every month, each one with a handwritten note to Lily about bridges he wished he had crossed sooner. Claire did not become less independent because she let me love her. I did not become less hurt because I chose forgiveness. We simply stopped treating pain like proof that love had failed. 1 year after the reunion, Hawthorne invited Claire back to speak about community spaces. Lily sat in the front row between us, drawing 3 figures on a bridge. This time, none of them had to run. If this story stayed with you, remember this. Love is not just the feeling that survives a secret. It is the courage to tell the truth, face the damage, and still choose the people waiting on the other side. Like, subscribe and tell me, could you forgive 10 years of silence if the truth had been stolen too?